Okay, this is it. The number one skill you must have as a senior Power Platform developer that will be heavily sought after in 2025: AI and Power Platform. How are you going to implement AI solutions in the Power Platform? What exactly does that mean? Exactly, right? So to unpack this, and there's a lot of layers to this, and close your ears, Microsoft. I'm not talking copilots. I'm not talking copilots. This is taking what you've already been building and peppering in the AI components to kind of take that application to a whole new level. Prime example, an AI invoice processing solution. What does that mean? This is going to be a little bit meaty, so stick with me on this one. What does that mean? You have vendors emailing invoices to a designated email address. You've already put a Power Automate on top of that to listen to that mailbox. And every time an email is coming in, it triggers, and then you process that mail. If it's attachment, you take those out, you spray them out into a document library. If it's a body of an email only with no attachments, you have a use case to handle that. These are things that we already know. But now what we want to do is put AI on top of that to make that process that much more smarter. So now we're doing things like extracting metadata from that invoice. And I'm not talking about OCR, and I'm not talking about document classification and mapping where you have to map each component on there. I'm talking about large language models to where you take the blob, convert it to plain text, send it to the LLM, and it responds back with JSON of all the metadata from that invoice. And then now you're storing that as metadata columns for that file in the document library. Once they hit a certain status, you route it for a human to review it. Again, route it, approval, all that we already know with Power Automate. We're just trying to leverage AI for certain pieces of our process. This is the skill that everyone needs to understand. Building these AI solutions, understanding what the AI framework and game look like. What's the difference between OpenAI and Azure and OpenAI store, the creators of ChatGPT that's out in the wild? When to use one versus the other. We have solutions that use both, but defining that line of when you use one versus the other is critical, right? The other piece is setting up your solution in a reusable way. This is going back to, what did we talk about that? Skill number 5. You really need skill number 5 in this skill number 1 situation, because reusability is key. You don't want to build an AI call in each one of your solutions just to have an AI update, a newer version to come out like 3.5 to 4 to 4.0 to 0.1. Like these things are, and that's just in the span of 18 months, right? So you don't want to have 50, 80, 100 of these things floating around, AI solutions, taking this business to a whole new level. Things are clicking, everyone's happy, AI is smart, they're leveraging it. And now here's a new model coming out, and you have to touch 80 individual solutions. So building that reusability, building that separation of concern really is going to help you define it. This is my friend, the number 1 skill you got to master. Not only are you just opening it up and understanding what it is in 2025, by the end of 2025, going into 2026, you're a ninja with this skill. I mean, you're cranking them out because you have your patterns and practices in place, all your tips and tricks. That's what the Power Platform is. It's just a series of tips and tricks that you learn along the way, because you're always going to hit a roadblock. Then you have to get creative on how to get around that roadblock. And so facing these roadblocks sooner than later, and as frequently than far between, is what's going to build up that muscle. But this is the number 1 muscle Only the 1% that has all 10 of these skills that we talked about in this series would be the highly employed, the most sought after, and you can pretty much write your ticket to anywhere you want to go. And they can taste it in the interview. I've been on the other side of many interviews, many tech interviews, a lot of technical screenings, and I can taste it. I can tell when I'm talking to someone that knows what they're talking about. Because I pick out of these 10, to be very transparent, I randomly touch on each one of these just to kind of see. And then once they give me an answer, it's like, oh, let's go deeper. How deep do you really understand skill number 3 or skill number 7 or skill number 1? How deep do you really understand it? Do you have working knowledge? Or are you in the trenches where you have experience? And again, I'm not saying experience is you're waiting for someone at your organization to come with the right project so you can flex this. No. When I'm talking about skill, I'm talking about nights, weekends, your own tenant. You're making this happen on your own. That's the only way you're going to be able to get this done. No one's going to hand you that perfect project to allow you to use all of this. You have to create it. If you want to do meaningful work, go for a non-for-profit. Find a non-for-profit that's on Microsoft 365, figure out what their issues they have, and build that stuff for free. And I love that process because when you do a non-for-profit, that's a resume builder. You can't put on the resume like, in the lab, I tried this invoice thing, and then. It helps you with the interview because you can talk that talk and walk that walk, but it's not really a resume thing. But a non-for-profit, now you have an organization, you have a time frame of when you've done it, and you can list out, and then you have references. It's a lot of goodness that come out of it, but you got to do it for free. You got to volunteer your time. It's a win-win, right? Make the sacrifice now so that way you can reap the rewards later. Skill number 1, AI, Power Platform, 2025. Let's get started. Stay skilled up, my friend.